It was a classic trap question, one designed to make him appear either egotistical or irresponsible. But Musk didn't hesitate. He leaned forward, matching her posture, and spoke in a lower, more deliberate voice. "I don't believe I should shape the future of humanity," he said simply. Victoria's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected such a direct answer. Musk's gaze remained steady as he continued, "I believe humanity should shape its own future." Then, with just the hint of a smirk, he added, "I just build the tools." The audience erupted. Some people clapped, others exchanged knowing looks. Everyone in the room understood what had just happened. Victoria Caldwell, the interviewer known for breaking down the most powerful figures in the world, had lost control of her own show. But Victoria wasn't finished. She was a professional, and she had one last card to play. She smoothed her notes and leaned in once more. "You've given us a lot to think about tonight, Mr. Musk," she said, her tone polished, but slightly softer. "But before we end, I have one final question." She locked eyes with him. "What do you say to critics who believe that men like you, billionaires, tech leaders, self-proclaimed visionaries, are just playing God? That you're not shaping the future for humanity, but for yourselves?" It was her last attempt to frame him as a self-serving, power-hungry industrialist. If he dismissed it too quickly, he'd seem uncaring. If he defended himself too strongly, he'd seem guilty. Musk leaned back, relaxed but focused. "I say they're giving me too much credit," he replied simply. The audience waited for more. So did Victoria. Musk's gaze swept across the studio, and when he spoke again, his words carried absolute certainty. "You think I'm playing God?" He shook his head. "No, I'm just playing engineer. I don't dictate the future. I build things, and then the world decides if they're useful." He shrugged slightly. "People chose to buy Teslas. They chose to use Starlink. They chose to launch satellites on Falcon 9 rockets instead of government ones. That's not control. That's choice." Victoria opened her mouth to respond, but Musk continued. "If people don't like what I build, they can reject it. That's how innovation works." He paused for a moment, then delivered his final blow. "You know what doesn't work that way? The media." The audience reaction was immediate. Some people clapped, others murmured excitedly, and many leaned forward, completely absorbed in what they were witnessing. Victoria Caldwell had built her career on shaping narratives, but tonight, the narrative had turned against her. She recovered her composure quickly, nodding once and smoothing over the closing. "Elon Musk, thank you for your time." "Thanks, Victoria," Musk replied with a slight nod. The cameras cut, and the live broadcast ended. But the real story was just beginning. Within minutes, clips from the interview flooded social media. "Elon destroys MSM" narrative started trending. The interview hit 5 million views on YouTube before midnight. The reactions were divided. Mainstream media outlets wrote headlines like "Elon Musk dodges accountability intense interview," while tech journalists and independent voices praised him for turning the tables on traditional media. Musk himself responded in his characteristic style. At 12:42 a.m., he tweeted, "I'm just an engineer, but thanks for watching." The post gained over 2 million likes in 3 hours. Victoria Caldwell faced the aftermath with dignity, but the impact was undeniable. By morning, the interview had taken on a life of its own. Some defended her, saying she did her job and tried to hold Musk accountable. Others argued she had underestimated him and walked into her own traps. A week later, Musk sat in his Tesla, scrolling through his phone. His team had sent him the analytics. The interview had done more than boost his public image. It had fundamentally changed how people viewed media accountability. He smirked as he read another headline: Musk versus media, who really won? With a final glance at his phone, he typed a response under one of the trending posts. His fingers hovered for a moment. Then he wrote two simple words: Round 2. He hit send, knowing that the media landscape would never be quite the same again. The story of that night became more than just an interview. It became a symbol of how traditional power structures could be challenged and changed. Victoria Caldwell had walked into her studio expecting another victory. Instead, she had witnessed the beginning of a new era in public discourse, where the old rules no longer applied and where truth, trust, and accountability were up for redefinition. For 18 years, Barron Trump stayed quiet. Everyone knew his name, but no one had heard him speak. He grew up watching everything from the sidelines: the politics, the news, and all the attention. No one thought he would ever step onto a stage and speak. But then something amazing happened. Under bright lights, Barron looked at the packed room, and everyone went quiet. In just a few minutes, this young man, who everyone had ignored, made an entire country stop and listen. But why did Barron finally decide to speak after 18 years of silence? And what did he say that shocked everyone? Let's go back and learn the truth about the speech that changed America. Barron Trump came from one of America's most powerful families. While there was always big news and arguments about politics, he stayed quiet. People only saw him in photos: tall, serious, with eyes that seemed to see more than others realized. He wasn't like his father, who could make headlines just by talking. He wasn't like his mother, whose grace and mystery made people curious. He was just Barron, always watching from the side. To others, it looked like he had everything: money, status, and privilege. But there was one thing Barron never really had: his own voice. A voice that wasn't twisted around or used for someone else's goals. From when he was young, Barron learned something hard. Every word he said could be used against him. He watched his parents face endless attacks, fake stories, and news that just wanted to get attention. When he tried to speak up before, people took his words the wrong way and used them for their own stories. So he decided to stay quiet. But that didn't mean Barron wasn't paying attention. In fact, he saw everything. He saw America changing. Young people like him struggling with huge student loans just to go to college. He saw good jobs disappearing as computers and robots took over. He saw rich people getting richer while poor people got poorer, and politicians just argued without fixing anything. He remembered going to charity events with his mother, seeing kids in poor neighborhoods who smiled at him but had eyes full of worry about their future. Some already knew they'd never escape being poor. He read thousands of comments online from young people feeling frustrated, hopeless, and ignored. Then one comment caught his eye: "We don't have a voice. They don't care what we think. Maybe we should just stay quiet and accept our fate." This hit Barron hard because he saw himself in those words. Then another thought came to him that wouldn't go away. If we all stay quiet, who will change things? This question bothered him for days. For the first time, being quiet didn't feel safe anymore. It felt like giving up. But even after realizing this truth, he wasn't ready to speak up. At least not until something happened that he couldn't ignore. The country was having hard times. Prices were going up, and even middle-class families struggled to buy what they needed. Companies were firing lots of people, replacing them with machines and computers. Young people took to the streets to protest. They weren't asking for handouts. They just wanted things to be fair: fair education, fair jobs, and a fair chance at a good life. One night, Barron watched a video of these protests. A young woman stood in front of a government building, speaking calmly but with fire in her eyes. "We're not lazy," she said. "We just want a fair chance. An education that won't leave us in debt forever. A job that lets us live, not just survive." No one from the building came out to listen. Instead, police came to break up the crowd. In the chaos, someone pushed the woman down. Watching her fall, still holding her protest sign, something broke inside Barron. He couldn't stay quiet anymore. That night, he started writing. His hands shook as he typed, but the words flowed. He wrote about everything he'd seen, every person he'd met, every story that needed to be told. He shared these stories online, not using his real name. People started sharing them, adding their own stories. Then one day, he got an invitation to speak at a youth forum. His fear came rushing back. He'd never spoken in public before, but he remembered all the voices that needed to be heard, and he accepted. The day of his speech, Barron stood backstage, heart pounding. His mother was there, just like when he was little. She didn't need to say anything. Her proud eyes said it all. When Barron stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent. He spoke about what he'd seen and heard. He talked about students drowning in debt, workers losing jobs to machines, and young people feeling hopeless. But most importantly, he talked about how staying silent wouldn't fix anything. His speech went viral. Some people praised him for speaking truth, while others called him a rich kid playing activist. His father even called him, warning him about the battle he'd started. But Barron didn't back down.